On April 20th, 2026, one of the most powerful men in the history of technology quietly walked away from his throne. Tim Cook, the CEO who took a $300 billion Apple and turned it into a $4 trillion empire, announced he is stepping down. Effective September 1st, Apple will have a new CEO, John Ternus, the head of hardware engineering, a man most people outside Silicon Valley have never heard of. And while the press is busy writing retirement tributes and legacy pieces about Cook's 15 years at the top, almost nobody is asking the most important question here. Why now? Why April 2026? Why is one of the most successful CEOs in corporate history walking away at this exact moment, at 65 years old, when his company is still worth $4 trillion? The answer, if you are paying attention, has almost nothing to do with age, and almost everything to do with artificial intelligence. Let's go back to the beginning, because you cannot understand why this resignation is such a big deal without understanding what Tim Cook actually built, and what he failed to build. When Steve Jobs died in October 2011, the consensus in Silicon Valley was that Apple was finished. Jobs was Apple. The products, the vision, the reality distortion field that made people stand in line overnight for a phone. That was Steve Jobs, and nobody believed for a second that anyone could replace him. Tim Cook was, by every measure, the opposite of Steve Jobs. Jobs was a visionary showman who cared about products with a borderline obsessive intensity. Cook was a supply chain expert from Alabama who had spent his career at IBM optimizing operations, cutting costs, and making manufacturing run like clockwork. He was not a product guy. He was not a visionary. He was the person Jobs trusted to keep the lights on, while Jobs did the creative work. And yet, what Cook did after Jobs died was genuinely remarkable. He took the iPhone, which Jobs had already built, and he turned it into the greatest consumer product distribution machine the world had ever seen. He expanded into wearables with the Apple Watch. He built Apple services, the App Store, Apple Music, Apple TV+, iCloud, into a business that now generates over $100 billion a year on its own. He redesigned Apple's supply chain into a competitive weapon so powerful that competitors spent years trying to reverse engineer how Apple could sell premium hardware at mass market volumes with the kind of margins that made every other company look inefficient. Under Cook, Apple became the first company in history to be worth $1 trillion, and $2 trillion, then 3, then 4. By any financial measure, Tim Cook's run as CEO is one of the greatest in corporate history. And then AI happened. And this is where the story gets uncomfortable. Because while every other major tech company in the world spent the last 3 years in a full sprint arms race around artificial intelligence, OpenAI releasing ChatGPT, Google releasing Gemini, Meta releasing Llama, Microsoft integrating AI into everything it builds, NVIDIA becoming the most important company in the world almost overnight, Apple watched from the sidelines. Siri, Apple's voice assistant, was once the most famous AI product on the planet. Apple introduced Siri in 2011, the same year Cook became CEO, and for about 6 months, it looked like Apple was going to own the AI assistant space. And then it just stopped. While Google Assistant got smarter, while Amazon Alexa expanded into every room of the house, while OpenAI built something that genuinely changed how people work and think, Siri sat still. It became a running joke. Ask Siri a complex question and it searches the web. Ask ChatGPT the same question and it reasons, explains, and solves. The gap became embarrassing. Apple launched Apple Intelligence in 2024, its attempt to play catch-up in the AI race. The reviews were polite. The actual product was underwhelming. The promised Siri overhaul kept getting delayed. Features that were announced at WWDC kept being pushed back, quietly removed from release notes, silently shelved. Multiple AI executives left Apple in late 2025. The company's AI chief, its policy head, a top design leader, all within months of each other. That is not a coincidence. That is a company in crisis at the product level, even as the stock price and revenue numbers look healthy from the outside. And now, Right at this moment, Tim Cook is leaving. Fortune magazine put it plainly in their analysis. Cook's exit is part of a broader CEO reckoning sweeping corporate America, driven almost entirely by the speed of the AI transformation. Doug McMillon at Walmart stepped down and cited AI directly, saying he did not think he could finish the transformation he started in time. James Quincy at Coca-Cola handed the reins over for the same reason. Adobe CEO announced his departure after 18 years. The pattern is consistent. Companies that are staring down a massive AI-driven transformation are concluding that the leader who built the previous era may not be the right leader for the next one. And nobody embodies that problem more clearly than Tim Cook at Apple. Cook is a brilliant operations executive. He is not an AI engineer. He is not a machine learning researcher. He does not come from the world of large language models or neural networks, or the kind of deep technical AI work that defines where every major tech platform is heading in the next decade. The person Apple chose to replace him is John Ternus, and the choice is extremely deliberate. Ternus has spent 25 years at Apple as a hardware engineer. He led the development of Apple Silicon, the M-series chips that Apple builds in-house that are, by most benchmarks, the most efficient processor designs in the consumer computing market. He oversaw the development of AirPods, iPad, Apple Watch Ultra, and just last month introduced the MacBook Neo, Apple's first low-cost MacBook. He is an engineer at his core. And the reason that matters enormously in 2026 is that the next phase of the AI race is not purely a software race. It is a hardware and software integration race. The companies that win the next 5 years of AI are the ones that can build custom silicon designed specifically to run AI workloads efficiently at the device level, on your phone, on your laptop, in your ear, without sending everything to a cloud server. That is called on-device AI, and it is where Apple has a genuine structural advantage that it has so far failed to fully capitalize on. Apple's chips are already among the best in the world at running AI inference locally. The problem has been the software and the product vision to actually turn that hardware advantage into products people want to use. By putting a hardware engineer in the CEO seat, Apple's board is making a very specific bet that the next chapter of Apple is about building AI into the physical layer of its products at a depth that no other company can match, because no other company controls both the chip design and the software stack the way Apple does. The long-awaited Siri overhaul is expected at WWDC in June, right in the middle of Cook's transition period. That is not an accident. Apple is trying to show the world that the new era is already beginning before the new CEO even officially takes over. And here is the larger context that makes all of this matter beyond just Apple as a company. We are in the middle of the fastest and most consequential technology transition in human history. Every major technology platform, smartphones, search engines, social media, cloud computing, is being rebuilt around AI from the ground up. The companies that move fast enough and make the right bets on leadership, architecture, and product vision in the next 2 to 3 years will define what the technology landscape looks like for the next 20. Apple has $4 trillion in market value, the most loyal consumer base in the history of consumer electronics, and hardware infrastructure that nobody else in the world can replicate. But it is behind. It is visibly, measurably behind on the most important technology shift of its era. Tim Cook built one of the greatest companies that has ever existed, and he is leaving because the next chapter requires a different kind of builder. That is not a failure. That is, if you think about it clearly, one of the most honest and self-aware exits a CEO has ever made. The question now is whether John Ternus can do what needs to be done. Take the hardware advantage Apple already has, close the AI software gap that has embarrassed the company for 3 years, and build the next great Apple platform before Google, Microsoft, or someone nobody has heard of yet does it first. The era of Tim Cook is over. The AI era of Apple is just beginning. Whether that era ends in triumph or in a collapse of a company that was once untouchable, That is the story that starts September 1st, 2026.